I think I went through like all the stages of grief, like literally. And I feel like I got to a point where I was angry, so I went to the batting cages. And
that was funny.
Now the anger has transformed into like wanting to take action and, I don't know, do something to make it feel like I'm not just, I can do more than just casting my ballot. I can, I don't know, do something. I'm definitely going to be more involved, and I'm going to be up everybody's ass to vote, so.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Helen.
Welcome to the studio in progress.
Yes, it's a work in progress. For those watching on YouTube,
my
you'll see it
gosh.
develop.
You'll see it develop, and it's. I can't put too much in here because I have to leave room so that the Murphy bed can come down when we need to, and then I don't want it to be so cluttered when the bed's down. So it's a little challenging, but I'm working it out, little at a time,
Day by day.
Yes, oh, it's so good to see you. It's been
a week.
It's been a week. And in the midst of the week, we launched the Socialized Studio. Like, what were we thinking?
I told you. So.
No, but we weren't supposed to launch. I don't know how it happened. It turned into like the pre-launch landed.
Anyway, today we're recording this on November 12th for this to be released tomorrow, which is pushing it for us. But it's exactly 1 week since the election. And we were supposed to record something last week, but given the results, I don't think either of us were in the best headspace to like come on and talk about a topic, no matter what the topic was.
Yeah. I also don't think it would be a good idea to come and talk on some random other topic when we're in the midst of something that was pretty, not even just national news, like world news at that point. So,
I mean, we did have an episode go live last Wednesday, but given the outcome that happened on Wednesday, we didn't really like promote it too much. So check out that last episode because it was a good one, but I didn't want to be insensitive to the internet world by talking about my comedy.
Yeah, that was bad timing to release it. But the people who always listen, and I had a friend message me about it. So Nicola sent me a big long message about how interesting it was to hear about your comedy, and that nobody really knows what happens with the world of comedy, and she found it so interesting. So it was such good feedback. So if you haven't listened to that one, it's objective feedback came in, and I feel that it was a good episode, and it's too bad it released on that day. But anyway, such is life.
We had to stay on schedule, and we didn't really know. We didn't know that was gonna happen. I think we're both. We could say it confidently. We're disappointed with the outcome.
Yeah, we're disappointed.
We really wanted to see the first female president. We were excited. I was thinking how a week ago I went for a walk in the morning, and I was like, oh, I had a little pep in my step. And today it was just I started listening to a political podcast, and I was like, I have to turn this off.
Yeah, I don't really listen to political anything, which is probably to my detriment. But I think that and I know you want to talk about this, so I'm happy to put myself into my discomfort zone, because this is not the comfort zone for me to talk about. This is something you want to talk about, and I am supporting it. But from like my perspective has always been, it's something that is so far from me ever being able to understand the workings of what goes on in politics or government or anything like that. Because if I think about it from a perspective of someone on the outside making a judgment about a shoot that I'm on, a production that's happening, and they're looking at it from the outside, they have no idea the inner workings of the production and how the crew, the dynamic is, and who's doing what, and how the flow works. So how can I possibly understand what's happening in there when it's like so far from my expertise? That's a huge problem for me. It is. I know you should talk about this more than me, because I can't.
I guess I'm confused. Do you mean like the inner workings of politics, or the inner workings of like an election?
Oh, politics in general.
Yeah.
The government, how it's run.
Helen.
I am so Listen, Julie, this is not my area of expertise.
The problem. Because at least you're owning it and you're saying you don't know how government works. That's fine. But this is like, I don't want to get into like, I more want this episode to be like us talking about our approach to like politics and how it's been, and like, we don't have to necessarily talk about like specific, I don't know, but
yeah, but don't, I know you're going to trash me as a boomer because got my head in the sand, but
no. I think the biggest part about this election is like a lot of people realized how like uneducated parts of America
Mm-hmm.
are on how government works. And
Yes.
like, a big campaigning point for like the Republicans, I'm not even going to say Trump or MAGA, I'm going to say the Republicans, was that like, what has Kamala Harris done as vice president? She's done nothing. It's like, well, if you know how government works, it's like, she's there to support Biden. She's not necessarily like, she's not really supposed to be doing anything.
Right. She's not in charge yet. Anyway,
She's not-
obviously.
yeah.
To me, that's pretty obvious, but maybe.
But some people
maybe
just
that's
don't
because I
realize
watch
that.
Veep.
Yeah.
My reference point is Veep.
I think this is a good starting point because I wanted to start the episode with like your experience and with politics, like growing up. I remember you have the story about your dad telling you to like register as a Republican.
Yeah.
So I know you can just do like a quick little thing and then I can say from my perspective as
Where
you
you
guys
sit in
having,
Well, so I will start by saying anybody who's, no matter what side you're on, and if you're listening to this right now, this is going to be more of just an emotional thing. This is not in any way an attack or a judgment on any decision. I would like to say that because I am not going to change people's minds. I know that I wasn't in the debate club in high school or college. I just don't have that skill set. No. I don't. I know, but I'm just telling you that I always am. I welcome everyone, and I'm not gonna. There's, of course, I'm sad of about what happened, and I'll tell my reasons why. But I know that it's just hard for me to process because. So let me talk about my history. So when I registered to vote. I didn't know what to do. I'm like looking at the forms. I'm 18 years old, and all I cared about, I was living my dream in the high school dream, twirling batons, ignorant as bliss, wonderful. And I registered to vote, and I say to my dad, "What should I put here?" And he says, "Republican." I'm like, "Okay," because I did what I was told. That's how I grew up. I was, we were very in a strict household, and so I did what I was told. So I registered. I didn't even realize that I was registered Republican until we were living in Chatham, and somebody went at the vote. This is embarrassing to say, but somebody mentioned it to me that she's like, "Oh, you can't vote in this election," and it was I want to say it was something to do with Obama's first run, and he said, "No, you can't vote in the primaries because you're registered as a Republican." And I was like, "I am? I hadn't clueless." Okay, and I admit being clueless. I was raising kids, running a family, doing work, barely keeping it together, like filling out the school papers, helping you with homework, giving you a bath, doing it. I just didn't have time for it. And I don't remember even paying attention to politics until more recently. So, guilty as charged, I guess, but maybe that's why I just don't think of it. I don't look at people and think, "Oh, I wonder if they're Republican or Democrat." Like it doesn't even come into my psyche at all.
No.
Even now, it's like not even in my psyche so much, but
yeah. I think I'll say that like you guys, we didn't talk about politics like at the dinner table or anything, but like I know Jonathan was into like Obama. And like that was the big thing. Like Jonathan was very into Obama. And it wasn't like a big topic of conversation growing up, but I feel like I'm gonna give you the credit and Sita the credit for me being like a progressive liberal person.
Okay.
And like teaching me like inclusivity and acceptance of other people.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Sita was our babysitter growing up, and she was from Jamaica. So obviously living in a very like white neighborhood, but having a black babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that was major.
Which was also what I had to deal with my family for that is another story too. It wasn't, let's not go down that road. We don't have to go down that road. No, that's a scary road. But for me, it was just like, you're not going to work. You're not leaving my grandchildren. That was like the vibe, whether or not who it was that was going to leave, that was going to babysit. So that's a whole different topic for another day. Yeah. But I have always struggled with that in my home as well, and with my family, because I am very progressive. I'm in the city. I'm working with tons of different types of people, walks of life. And I just have always embraced everyone. So it's just, that's the part I think I find most troublesome. And when I hear people speak or I see on social media, I'll sometimes I'll see a video and I'll think, okay, I'm going to watch this. This is probably somebody can really state the case really like nicely and warmly or whatever. And then I go into the comments and the comments are so mean. And so I'm like, how can you watch that video and be that mean about it? And and that hateful. And that's the most upsetting thing. Cause that's why, you might say, why don't you want to talk about it on social media? Because there's no talking about it. There's no talking about it in any way that's going to not have people come out with hate. That is what I've seen on the nicest videos that have been posted. And I can't, it'll tear me apart.
Yeah. I think I have had like a shift this past week where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to like necessarily go online and make a super political video. But if I make a video about like reproductive freedoms and like LGBTQ rights and like, if the price to pay for being on the right side of history is a few mean comments, like that's fine for me. Like, I don't know.
For me, it would be a lot more than a few, obviously, because of the platform.
I know it's like harder for you to,
it would get so personal. Like more, it would be.
It's like frustrating because I feel like you are in the demographic of white women that vote for.
I know.
That side. So like it would be a really empowering image on social media to have that, but I understand and like respect the decision that you don't want to bring that negativity into your life.
Yeah, I mean, I'll crumble.
I think we just have a hard time talking about because we like to know what we're talking about. Dad always like jokes with me. He's like, oh, you hate talking about politics at the dinner table. You don't like talking about controversial things. And I'm like, it's not that I don't like talking about them. It's like, I think I feel, and I don't want to like overgeneralize with like how women feel, but I'm like, do we feel the need to like, it's like when we apply for jobs, it's like we want to meet every criteria, but like men only meet like 60% and they like apply with full confidence. Boy. So it's like, I feel like that's my issue. It's like, I don't really like to like talk about things unless I know enough about them. And I'm obviously not going to go on the internet and like spew something if I don't know things.
Yeah, I know. No, the main reason I don't want to post about it is just because I don't feel like having the attack of negativity that's going to happen no matter what. Even if I say it in the nicest, warmest, motherliest way. And even if I just articulate it like I respect everybody's opinion and I'm not going to try and, I'm not going to be able to change someone's mind. I just don't want to have my social media be that kind of a negative place. When I just get negative comments about the shopping video that I posted about because I moved something to the front of the rack, I mean, people are coming at me like I'm making misery for the retail workers. Can you imagine the kind of hate I would get on a video? I'm not equipped is really it. I'm too much of a, like, everybody, can't we all just get along type person? And I don't like controversy. I have a problem with it. So I have, that's where I sit. But I would like to hear you explain why it's important, because I think that you have a better way with words and you have a clearer understanding of why this has impacted you in such a major way. And then I want to talk about my one thing about how it has impacted me and why I think I was so upset. So you go first.
I made it a point this election to like be more informed and get more like, just to be more informed, to know what's like happening in the world. I feel like, I don't remember when this was, but someone was talking about something and I had like no idea what was going on. So I think this year I've gone through, I was like, oh, I've just been in a bubble of not really paying attention and these things affect me or they might affect me in the future. And I feel like I was so disappointed with things for a multitude of reasons. But if I'm going to pick out one reason in particular, it's like everyone knows a woman. Everyone has a woman in their life. Everyone has a mom. And what if your mom or your sister or your daughter was attacked by a person, and now that person holds the highest position of power in the United States? Like, when I feel like how was that not a deal breaker? That's, I think, at the core, I think that's why I'm like the most upset, is like, how is that not a deal breaker for people who have such like religious values or like come from such like moral high ground, that wasn't a deal breaker? because I know if something had happened to me, and not that like if something had happened to me where I had a bad experience or I had a attacked experience, I'm just going to call it an attack. I know that everybody would want that person to pay, like to face the consequences for their actions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like what I struggle with. Like policies are, I think, like we've gone through periods of bad government policy before. Like, yes, these are going to be extremely drastic, and that makes me upset on other reasons. I think each day I'm like upset about a different thing. It's like one day it's like reproductive freedom, and then the other day I'm like, oh my God, mass deportation is going to be devastating. And then another day I'm like, climate crisis. I think the climate crisis, like I had days where that's the biggest one, where it's like, okay, when I see a little kid, I want to cry because I'm like, are they going to have Earth? Like,
right.
Because if we
ignore that,
I think yeah. And so I have just been feeling not frustrated, but it's like the only way to really make change is to talk about it and have the uncomfortable conversation. So I feel like that's why I wanted to talk about it on the podcast. I didn't want to be just another like podcast of two white ladies just like, oh, we're going to talk about like social media this week, and we're not really going to say anything, because I don't think that's really helpful. Not again, I want this to be like a positive. I didn't mean to go on a negative rant, but like I think a positive thing that will come out of this is that I think it was like a wake-up call for people. It definitely was like a wake-up call for me to feel like I need to get like more involved or be more informed or volunteer more and help. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like I've derailed this, and it's not.
No, you haven't at all. You're very clear. And I'm going to say that we are similar in the thought that you mentioned, which now I'm going to try and articulate it nicely, whatever.
Was mine not nicely? Was I too mean?
No, I'm going to try, because I don't want to be falling apart over here. So I'm going to try.
Because I could grab this mic and fucking let it rip, but I'm not.
No, you did. You were very nice. So my thing is that I know so many people in all walks of life, and so, I've like lived a much longer life, and I have come across a lot of people, and I think that that for the most part, the people that I know and the way I feel about raising our kids a certain way and having a moral standard for how you live your life and how you treat people and how you even are in business and how you in business, I make sure everyone is taken care of in a way. And when I'm at the shoots, my crew, like down to every single person that's working, they're valued. And so I feel like I look at how I raise my kids, and I think all of you are pretty great. And, even Jonathan with his little, quirks and whatnot. I mean, at the core, he is a really good person. And I feel so strongly about that. And so then I say, let's say I had to pick a person who was going to represent my family and going to go out into the world and be the spokesperson for my family or for my company or something like that. I would want someone that represents my morality, my standards, my kind of life. And when I think about the person who got elected, I don't think that for me, he meets those standards. And that is probably if I had to define my biggest problem of all the things, I think that's probably it. Like, how do we as a country think like, oh, this is a good representative of what America is? And it's just sad to me, because then I realize, well, most of America, I guess, thinks that's a good representation. And that's sad in and of itself. And that just, it's devastating to me. And I don't know. And I know there's a lot of people going to listen to this and who knows what, judge me, us, whatever. And so be it. But I think I still welcome everyone. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm not going to talk to that person anymore. I mean, I can't even imagine living my life that way. How would I even? No, it's like,
I think like, I'm not obviously cutting people off or not talking to people, but it's like, I definitely have a little bit of a different perspective on your values. If like, it just sometimes it's a little contradictory, but that's fine. Keeping it positive. I'm
okay.
What? That's true.
You can be honest. It's okay.
I feel like I think I'm really confused in some ways because I'm like, how have we as like lost so much empathy? Like, I think a lot of times, I think a lot of the decisions that were made were like the people have lacked the empathy to think about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Like, I know that I'm like a privileged white woman in a blue state. I don't know, or, you know, I don't think some of my like reproductive freedoms are on the verge of immediately being taken away, but I have empathy and sadness for the women who don't have those resources and that will. So I think that that's where I struggle a little bit is like the empathy card, but I also want to make this a more positive because I don't want to do another podcast where people are
but I want to
depressed.
talk. I have to interrupt you because I want to talk empathy too.
I thought you were going to be upset, so I was trying to move on to the next idea that I had.
Because I had another thought about this. Okay, you ready for this one? This is like a bigger thought.
Yeah.
And this is a Hellenism, but let's see if I can articulate it without even getting upset, which I think I can. So, okay.
No, I wanted this to be happy.
This is
and
good.
Uplifting.
This is good. This is not me being sad.
I wanted it to be an open discussion and not just us talking about like the food we ate this week. Like, because I just feel like
it's important. It's important. I'm with you on it. So, I think that we all experience things, and we have. Oh my gosh! Stop it. We all have things that happen. So, I got to say it like this. Let's say I never had cancer. I wouldn't know what it was like to go through cancer. So I live my life blindly not knowing what that's like. And I think I can maybe assume by hearing someone else's story what it might be like, but I have no idea. I would never know what it's like to raise a child with autism. But lo and behold, we travel down that road and it's like, oh, I have a little more empathy for the people going through the things that I've gone through. So I think what we're missing a little is like, let's say somebody in their family had a situation where someone was suddenly was a transgender or something like that. I think it's going to take for the people that are so dead set against the rights to have someone directly that they are impacted by directly to make their change. And that's such a long road. Do you know what I mean?
That's the way it needs to be. I hate that that's like that we can't just like put ourselves. It's like what happened to like Mr. Rogers and like these shows about thinking about other people, you know? Like I saw someone say like maybe we need to bring this like kids need to watch Mr. Rogers again because it's like, well, like won't you be my neighbor? Like you know?
Oh my God, Julie, bring back Mr. Rogers.
Yeah. I can't take credit for this. I saw this on the internet, but I thought of that and I'm like, yeah, it's like why where has that gone?
That is the part that really, really gets me. And where I can't connect the dots is when I know people who I believe have those values, but they still think that it's okay the way things turned out. And I guess I don't know. And I guess, so then I sit there and I think, well, is someone going to change my mind about the way I think? No, someone's going to convince me, oh yes, because it doesn't matter that he's not a moral person. He could still be in charge or whatever. So someone's really not going to be able to convince me that. So am I going to be able to convince them of my thoughts? I don't know. And that's why I don't want to, it's hard for me to want to go down that road. I just
think it's really hard because I don't remember politics ever being this like radicalized and negative before. Either. So I think that's also part of it where it's like we are charting in new territory. We're like that.
Yeah. It's crazy because I've never seen it where people have been so intolerant on either side. I've never seen it before. I want to say this though. I do remember this growing up that I have a relative that was, so having grown up in a very Republican family, Republican household and whatnot, I just remember the tone of my parentals talking about, I can't even say it but I have to say it because it's the only way to explain it. The Dems, like they were the bad guys. And it's like, I didn't even know what that meant growing up. I just have vague memories of it because I remember this specific relative being mentioned. And it's like, oh, well, you know. Rah, 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 rah. And so that was my growing up rhetoric. And then I went out into the world, and took me a while to find my own
part
way.
of it.
Huge. And then,
Yes.
so what I'm saying is all these people have this same rhetoric that they've been raised with. And it's like, so it's not going to go like, click, we're going to change it. It took years for me to open my eyes, be out in the world, have different types of relationships, and see the other side, and really go, oh, you know. And I know people are like, oh, this whole woke thing, like with like such a negative tone. It's like, let's wake up. We don't have to be woke, but let's wake up and see that there's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think we can start to wrap it up, and I'll start getting more positive because I have a few positive things pre-planned positivity to end on.
The mothership appreciates you because you knew that I'd be like tanking down into the deep abyss.
Because I didn't want this. That's why I also wanted this to be a shorter episode. I didn't want someone to tune this in and get depressed. I just want people to know that this is the conversation we've been having for the past week. So that's why I was like, I feel like we need to do this on the pod, because it's all we've been talking about like all week whenever we're on the phone with each other. So
I know. And the thing is, for days I was like, I didn't cry today, and I don't know why I've been crying. That's the other thing. I've never had such a reaction to anything. That's what kind of really set me. Like, what? How am I upset? How is this happening? Why? And that's when I realized what the basis was. It was like the morality part. And I felt like, you know, I think I want to say I'm living my life to a certain standard that we have set for ourselves as human beings, as parents, as, you know, families. And it's been rough.
It's been a week.
It's been a week, but I'm glad that we're being honest, because I do think this is important. That's why we're here. We're having real conversations, and they're not always going to be perfect, and they're not always going to be, you know, what everybody wants to hear. But they're real.
I think going forward, I feel like something inside me has changed, where I can't remember anything really affecting me in this way before. Like, obviously, like the first time this person was elected, I was like, okay, we're going to get through it.
Was that your first time voting? No. You had voted before
that's the other thing. I have been voting. Every single election I have been eligible to vote in, I have had to vote against that man.
Really?
I have not had a normal election.
Wait, that's another thing to say about this, because
I put normal in air quotes, everybody.
Yes. Yeah. I have no memory of being that. Not that I'm saying I didn't care one way or the other, but I don't remember being impacted or having just politics in general be such a part of so much of the conversation day after day after day. And I remember during the first term, where every day it was like the headline had his name in it, and I was like, I don't remember ever talking about the president this much. Like, what is this?
No.
It's like, I don't want to use the word narcissist, but it becomes like everything became. I'm sorry, but everything became about that.
You're not wrong.
God, I don't think I am on that one. But I never noticed it before. And I'm like, wow, this is really like a game changer. And I remember in grade school when we had learned about the Lincoln, I want to say, was it Lincoln, the assassination, and then the Kennedy assassination? Like, we learned about all these things. And there was there was a prediction that happened, and they were like, how history repeats itself the cycle. And this was the cycle they were talking about. And I'm like, this is happening. I remember learning about this in grade school, and I was trying to Google it and find out who was it that was talking about this history repeating itself. And then the crazy thing happened with the freaking assassination attempt. I'm like, how is this even possible? This is exactly like, like it's history repeating itself.
Okay.
Freaking hell.
I'll start to wrap it up here. I
gotta relax.
Yeah. I think, as I said, this election has changed me. I've always been into history. I think the reasons that I am specifically disappointed and like frustrated with this election is because I am more informed than I ever have been in my life. I have been more up to date with politics. I have been thinking back. I took two very like perspective shifting classes in college. One was the history of the Holocaust and one was the history of the 60s and the 70s, which I feel like pertain perfectly to this moment in time right now. So I think having all of that in my brain, that and the moral issue that we were talking about earlier, makes it so disappointing and like upsetting to me because I have all of that in my head of seeing history repeating itself. But here's my positive note. Because I am a changed person after this election, I think I feel more empowered to like get involved. And I think everyone has been saying, not everyone, but like some Democratic leaders, like we have to come together or you have to like build community and you have to have the tough conversations. I know you're saying you can't change someone's mind, but I don't want to feel scared or nervous to have those conversations. And that's why I want to be more informed. Because like, not to say I'm going to change someone's mind, but if I can at least have an open and like friendly discussion about it and maybe shift their perspective 0.1%, like that's a win. And so I wanted to plug some things that I have found on the internet this week that I think are helpful and positive.
She comes with receipts. I was going to ask you how you are educating yourself when you say you're educating yourself about politics, because one might say, well, you're just listening to one side of it because you're on this social media skew, or you're listening to that side of it because you're in that social media skew. No. So I would like to know. So do share.
A few things. I'm going to rapid fire, so it's not too long. Okay. I listen to Pod Save America. It is a podcast by the speechwriters that worked and speechwriters and like staff of Barack Obama's campaign that have made this podcast after he was elected in 2016. And obviously it's like left leaning, but I feel like they do a very good job at like presenting everything. I listen to that every week, which I think has been super helpful. They're like funny too. They make it like easy to digest and they bring on people to interview. So they interviewed like Stacey Abrams. I think they had Tim Walz on it. I might be making that one up, but they have like important people on. The next thing is that because I'm taking comedy writing classes, I look at the news every morning to write jokes. So I'm reading the news and going through headlines more because I am writing jokes. So recommend Google fun. News. If you don't want like American heavy news and you want like a more unbiased of like, it's not through the American lens, I've been going to like international news sites instead. And then it gives you a little bit less of like America.
I'm gonna plug 1440. Isn't that the news, the unbiased news that
I think so
sponsors our newsletter? I think it's called. That's a good one.
And then the last few things I'll plug is that I subscribe to the ACLU website, so I get updates on that. Those are the American Civil Liberties Union, just really is working to protect everyone's like civil liberties and like defending. And then the last one is if you go to Vote Save America, there are some states where ballots still need to be cured, which means they need to be confirmed. So you can volunteer, which I was going to try and do this week if I had time tomorrow or Thursday. But you basically like call people and get them to confirm that their ballots count.
I love that.
So those are all
difference. The things. Those are great things. Those are great things. Good way to end it positively, because I do think that we all need to get more educated, and I am going to make an effort to understand more about how it all works too.
I think I went through like all the stages of grief, like literally, and I feel like I got to a point where I was angry, so I went to the batting cages. And
that was funny.
Now the anger has transformed into like wanting to take action and I don't know, do something to make it feel like I can do more than just casting my ballot. I can, I don't know, do something. I'm definitely gonna be more involved and I'm gonna be up everybody's ass to vote. So
okay. We're counting on you, Julie. And your voice is important and your comedy is important because sometimes we need to look at things. We have to look at the hard things. And you and I know a lot about dark humor. We've been through that together. So your arsenal is packed for this one.
Yeah. I hope that was not a too upsetting of an episode, or you feel seen or heard, or I don't know, you can relate, or if you're mad, I'm sorry. Look at that empathy. I'm sorry.
Little steps, baby steps will make change. And I appreciate you so much for wanting to talk about this and making me talk about it.
I'll just reiterate again. We are a positive space for like all the LGBTQ the trans people. We're here for you. We're allies.
Yeah.
We're a safe space. We want to stay positive, which is hard to do sometimes, but we're a safe space for everybody. If you need to vent, cry, yell, that's all.
Yes. And I'm sorry that I got upset, but sometimes emotions are a good thing. So
Yeah.
we're good
Alrighty.
with it. Oh, all right. Yours truly.
Helen and Julie.
Thanks for being with us this week on our little journey down the lane that we are, at least me, I'm not always comfortable talking about, but Julie's going to get me there. She's going to get me out of my comfort zone. All right. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Bye.